Hour 2 Overdrive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, Doug, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles, McLennan. Leafs in action tonight. Darren Dreger coming up here in a moment. Some news today. Tampa has made a deal. Yanni, Gourde, and Oliver Bjorkstrand are on their way to Tampa in exchange for 2 first-round picks and a second-rounder going to Seattle. And Jack Hughes is done for the year. He's had shoulder surgery.
You're the GM of Seattle, Jersey, Hazy. What's the approach? Are you going to say to your team, no best player, no dice from me? Or how do you proceed?
Honestly, I don't think I'm a buyer anymore. I don't know if I'm a seller, but I think
Peter Forsberg went down and Joe Sakic won Raymond Bourke's Stanley Cup.
This is not the Colorado Avalanche of 2001. I don't think Jersey, even with Jack Hughes, was winning a Stanley Cup, quite frankly. I didn't look at them as a serious cup contending team. I don't think they are.
Those two guys are really good players, man, but they're both 5'11", and they're both not that big, and I don't know if they can ever wheel through the whole thing. That's my honest opinion. Really good players. Really good players.
If you can make your team better, you always do it, regardless of the situation.
Long term, you're saying.
Long term. I'm saying,
sure.
Regardless.
Sure.
Right? We talked about it yesterday. If the Montreal Canadiens, even if you don't believe that they should be buyers, if somebody's available that you covet, you do it. If you can grab somebody right now because now you have Jack Hughes' cap space and you can bleed that into next year when the cap goes up and you can start moving some players, I think you do it. I don't think you do it to go, hey, we're chasing the cup and we're just going to replace this player with that player. That's not the. I don't think that's the thought process you do. But if you can grab somebody that has a high cap hit and give yourself a chance this year, but it's more about the future, I would do
That's possible, and we were talking about yesterday, like using Dylan Cousins as an example in Buffalo or whatever, sure. But the thing is, Hughes is not returning for game one. This is not, they're putting his cap hit on long-term IR. He's done for the year. He's had shoulder surgery.
Right, but the cap goes up. So
yes, I understand, but I'm just saying, okay, you bring in someone. I don't know. I don't know what that would look like, and we'll see what New Jersey does. And they're in a tough spot because it's not fair to every other guy on the team to just say we're done. Markstrom's been injured, and now Hughes is done, and they've got their head above water, but they're starting to leak some oil recently. Jersey, they've lost a lot of games lately, and I just look at the East. I got Florida, Tampa.
You hate Jersey.
I'm not the biggest fan of Jersey.
There's something about it, man. I don't know if it was that one draft we had to go to there, but when they come up, your car goes in the wrong direction, and you're like, I'm going to give it to Jersey.
So let me ask you this. Right now they're third in the Metro. Them head-to-head against Carolina today.
Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, I
Did
just
you take Jersey?
I just don't trust
Carolina's goaltending. I don't love Carolina necessarily.
I think Carolina's a really good team, but I'll take Markstrom over who's playing net for them. Kuchetkov, or is it Freddie?
Probably, yeah.
So
Kuchetkov, I would think.
Okay, so I mean, there's a question.
Okay, well, let's do a on the fly power rankings in the East. Like in terms of, I think they can win a Stanley Cup. How many teams do you legitimately think can win the Stanley Cup in the East?
5.
You have 5.
Right off the top of my head.
Okay. Can I guess who they are?
Yeah, you guess.
Toronto, Florida, Tampa, Washington, Carolina.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fair.
I mean, it's hard to argue. It's hard to argue that.
And that's not and
there's a couple in there. Well, Toronto included, Washington, and a lot of what ifs.
That's 4th and 5th for me. Like, I have the Florida teams. I think they deserve to be at the top. Carolina, I don't know if they can win a cup because of what you said. Like, I don't know that goaltending. Do they have enough firepower? If Rantanen gets going, then I think they would. But
if they go into the playoffs with that goaltending as is, it's a disservice to the players that have been playing there.
Who else are you going to get, though?
Who's
I don't know. Like, but the GMs have proven in the past. Colorado flipped both their goal. They had 2 new goaltenders the next day of practice, and they said, we're not watching that anymore.
I know. I understand. And which was a bull. There's been some – we should actually – you've got a list coming up at some point. Are you done with those lists?
I will be doing the list. Oh, yeah. The list is coming tomorrow.
How about a top –
maybe the top 5 things that should happen Friday.
I like a top 5 bold – there's been some bold moves this year. Like that Colorado, like 2 new goaltenders trading Rantanen. Those are
Colorado's
That's
been
not
the
entering
craziest.
his head if he does top 5 bold moves. He wants heat. He wants Sidney Crosby to Colorado.
That's just not going to happen. Like Sid is he's not going to be traded.
Okay, what move Friday would make your head pop off your body? Like, is it Sid to Colorado?
Well,
I think Rantanen moved again would make my head pop off.
What would be bigger, Rantanen traded again or Elias Pettersson traded?
Pettersson.
Simply because it's a Canadian market.
And
the whole story behind
they traded
him.
Miller.
Yeah, that's the amazing thing.
Pettersson, him being moved is fascinating for me because that's Vancouver saying we can't move on with either one of them.
Which would not surprise
bizarre
me.
About him? I guess yesterday, what did he do? Show up to the rink early and worked out and then stayed on the ice after and shot some pucks? Like, it's been a calendar year and you finally decide that you might have to put a little bit extra into it. And Rick Tocchet was like, the last 48 hours I've seen a big improvement. I'm like,
yeah, I know.
Like what a gong show.
11.6 million.
What's Tocchet going to say? Like,
but just the idea of that, a year later, he decides he's going to crack some iron and shoot some pucks before practice. Like,
well, I mean, for the cameras. What was that? Kyle Lowry that was doing.
That was after the game he went out. Yeah, you see the heroics from time to time.
Yeah, it just. I'm sure he's probably done that before. I hope so. I hope this isn't the first.
Well, why would it be
time
brought to? Why would it? Everyone was like, "Holy, this guy! He showed up early. He lifted weight." Everyone was. He must not have happened before because they were shocked.
Yeah, it shouldn't be breaking news when that happens.
You're right. It shouldn't be. They shouldn't have to interrupt newscasts.
Yeah.
Talk said it on his interview. He's like, the last 48 hours, if he can keep that going, maybe he's got something. I'm like, this is bizarro world.
It is bizarro world. Here's Darren Dreger, a TSN Hockey Insider, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. What would make your head spin more, Dregs? Mikko Rantanen being traded again or Elias Pettersson being traded by Friday?
Elias Pettersson.
Yeah, Pettersson?
Yeah, only because they're in a different place. I know more information on Mikko Rantanen and
yeah, what's going on there with Rantanen? I saw your tweet. We referenced it. We just talked about it, but
yeah.
Go ahead.
So I don't know how many teams are on it. I believe that Rantanen submitted a list, and management and ownership of the Carolina Hurricanes this week, as I tweeted, have been canvassing NHL clubs, just gauging their level of interest. Now, that doesn't guarantee that he's getting traded for a second time, but it certainly sounds like the Carolina Hurricanes are nervous about him walking out the door, them perhaps not going as deep into the playoffs and making it worth it, and then they get nothing in return. So, no guarantee of trade, but it seems like there's a more aggressive approach to trade specific to Mikko Rantanen now with Carolina than...
So I think we still have you. Do you have us, Dregs?
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, you got you. So when you said like they asked Rantanen for a list, what does that mean? That he'd be willing to sign with in the future, or that he'd be like, does he have trade protection?
Yeah, he's got a 10 team. Doesn't he?
10 team. Okay,
yeah.
So that's what it's about then.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, we're still ironing out the wrinkles of this one. It's an interesting one, and I mean, there's been a whirlwind of speculation around guys specific to the reality that appears to be unfolding. But again, hey, Tom Dunn and Eric Tulsky could gauge that level of interest and just say, well, shockingly, it's not as high as it should be, and maybe it won't be. Like, if there's no guarantee, if Mikko Rantanen and his agent Andy Scott are telling teams that have interest that we're not signing. We're going to July 1st. Teams may just say, okay, we'll forget it because we're not giving Carolina roster players off our playoff team
like they did without
that level of certainty. So I'm cautious with this one. So literally we're going to do play-by-play of how this whole scenario unfolds.
Think about that conversation to Tulsky. Actually, we're not going to be so stupid as to give you a roster player and then not sign them, and he'd be like, well, that's what I just did.
Yeah, well, I mean, you played in Carolina. And not to go back to those days, but I think they were counting on Mikko coming in, playing with his buddy Aho, being a good fit with Rod Brind'Amour in a way that Brind'Amour likes play and all that. I think this tracks back to Rantanen more or less getting blindsided in the trade initially. And I think of late he's been a better player for them, but I think I said this last week or the week before. I've yet to find a hockey person that can make sense of that trade other than Carolina got the best player in the deal, but makes sense of it that they didn't get some level of certainty, which is, borderline unbelievable given how Marty Natchez is playing in Colorado.
So, Dregs, before we get into more trade talk, we had a spirited debate on the show yesterday about a 2008 clip and your salad. Do you want to verify and maybe go through? There was no fresh dip. That was just your hair, correct?
Oh, his phone.
He hung up on
What a convenient phone drop. Just as you ask him that question.
I think he hung up.
I think he hung up. Get some clarification there, Doogie, on the hair and the hang up.
Because he hung up on me.
He might have said, I'm not answering that.
Yeah, I think there was...
17 years later, I refuse to answer that. You may have run off Darren Dreger
No, I
from our
didn't
show.
run him off. Listen, the guy, he looked young and spry.
He did. It was a very dark haircut.
It was not a Jimmy Benning.
It wasn't far off, Jimmy.
He went to the hairdresser back in that day in 2008 and said, Jimmy Benning plus.
Jimmy Benning on vacation on his wedding day.
Yes.
I want Jim Benning on his wedding day.
That's regulars just need to say the code word. Benning plus.
All right, Dregs, go ahead. Clarify the hair back in 08.
Yeah, hold on, though. I don't recall the pictures. The color of my hair, how dark it was back
Dude,
then?
it was
Very
jet
dark.
black, Dregs. It was jet black. Were you doing any monkey business with that hair?
Well, no, I was not. And I think it was maybe sitting beside Bobby McKenzie the years following that kind of tarnished me. But it's one of the reasons I make fun of James all the time. His hair color really hasn't changed since way back then. And look at me. I look like I'm 1,000 years old. But maybe it speaks to the level of trust. Hey, back in those days, though, I was really trying to pull off the John Ferguson Jr. look. And I thought I did a pretty good job. So
you did.
I agree. I can confirm that.
Yes.
I will not say confirm or deny. I can confirm it. So with Darren Dreger, TSN Hockey Insider, the New Jersey Devils have confirmed that Jack Hughes is done for the year with the shoulder surgery. What does this mean for them over the next 2 days and the rest of the season?
Yeesh. That's nasty. It's just flat out nasty, right? Dougie Hamilton is going to be out potentially week to week. So the news is slightly better there because, as you say, training camp next year. I guess most managers would say, okay, uncle, that's enough. Let's just lock it down. And I don't think that's going to be the case with Tom Fitzgerald and New Jersey Devils.
It's gone.
All right, Dregs. Yeah, the phone is really acting up here. Disappointing because there's so much to get into.
Well, we
here.
need him. We actually need some of the information that he's able to provide.
Yeah. Maybe we can go to the Doogie desk.
It's my fault. I brought up the hair and he hung up. And
I think that's what happened. I think
he
went into some little closet in his house so he wouldn't have reception after the hair comment.
He didn't want anybody in the house,
hearing him
talking about his salad.
That's what it is. He's down in the cellar somewhere, and we'll see if we can get him back.
When you're at home on your cell, I've actually had to have a cell phone booster brought into the house because there's pockets of dead.
I know, it's weird. You get around a certain firewall or something.
You're walking into your office and all of a sudden it cuts out or something like that. So actually, any call I get now, I run to my basement and I stand right next to the cell phone booster because I know that I've at least got something. It's awful.
We need a cell phone booster for Dregs. I don't know where he is. We'll see, but
he's done.
Yeah, it might be the end. We'll see. But yeah, with Jack Hughes done for the year, again, the Eastern Conference, we've been talking about it since 4 o'clock with the Leafs and what they're going to do. And that's what I want to ask Dregs. How do the Leafs react to this? Are they going to react whatsoever? Do they have things kind of ironed out and they're going to make moves? Regardless of what Tampa does, but
it's two ways. The two ways saying I'm not going to react to other teams in the division that are rivals because sometimes you can do foolish things, or it's okay, we're going to pull the King Daddy Topper here, and we're not just going to make it we're going to shock the world. I don't know what that deal would look like, but
I don't think it's going to be all world deals.
No. Well, guys, we talked about the major issue, the bodies around. Like, there's a lot of...
They got to move pieces out. They're up against the cap, and they don't have a ton of assets.
Right.
That's another thing with Toronto right now.
So here's the thing. Like, we can talk about these teams that are, struggling or whatever. We're studying Edmonton. Like, I look at the teams when they're playing to their best of their capabilities, not to the worst, because you're going to be emotional about it. If you look at what the Leafs have done and when they're playing at their best, Auston Matthews and guys like that, then it's just nip and tuck. It's not adding significant pieces. That's where I think that's where the Leafs are going to go.
I wouldn't disagree with you, but I think you'd say that about Florida and Tampa, and it hasn't stopped them from making moves.
Correct.
Dregs is back with us. Dregs, can you give us some sort of insight on what the Leafs are doing here and how they may react to the moves that Tampa made today and what Florida's been doing the last few days?
Yeah, and I'll get to that in a second. I'm just trying to envision the slow burn that you have going on right now.
Oh,
Brian.
I'm trying, man. I'm trying here. I'm being very professional. Very professional with cell phone issues.
Yeah. Well, look, I'll tell you, Toronto's position really hasn't changed. And, Florida goes out and does what they did in acquiring Seth Jones. And they might add a bit more. I don't know that it'll be significant. And then... Julian Brisebois, Tampa Bay, man, he just finds a way to get stuff done. He does. And that's a real nice move, couple of moves, while bringing in players for the Tampa Bay Lightning. But Toronto's focus remains at center ice and bringing in a defenseman. And I guess they have to be willing to pivot. If the centerman isn't there that you want, and we're talking still, guys, even though it's a long shot at best, Braden Shen, Brock Nelson, right? Scotty Lawton is a number 3. That's what he is. Now, not saying they have no interest in Scott Lawton. I'm just saying that until the other two have been exhausted, you know that those deals can't be made. I think Brad Treliving is going to stay focused on that. I had a team tell me earlier today that Doug Armstrong is still listening on Braden Shen. And the reason he's still listening is because he's positioning for somebody to step up and make a crazy offer, right? So let's have that conversation. What would we define as crazy? It's not going to be a main roster player, at least not for the Toronto Maple Leafs, but maybe it is somewhere else. Maybe it's a couple of roster players. I think L.A., maybe some other clubs. So beyond that, what does that look like? And would Toronto have the stomach to not deal off one or two, but maybe all three of the prospects that have been rumored, like Cowan, Minton, and Benny Danford. I mean, so it feels like that's what it's going to take to get the interest of Armstrong, and even then there's no guarantee that he does that. And then you look at Brock Nelson, if he's plan B, and nobody seems to know what Lou is doing because Lou isn't telling anybody what he intends on doing with these players. So that's where Toronto's at. So if center ice kind of falls apart in front of Brad Treliving, maybe he shifts whatever of the assets that he was willing to use and tries to acquire a better defenseman.
Darren, we talked about the body issue, the number of them with the Maple Leafs. How does an organization go about addressing this?
Like just in terms of the roster spots, the salary cap, and all that.
Yeah, how do you make people disappear?
Well, I noticed Pacioretty wasn't on the ice again in Vegas.
Does that mean it's almost close to game over for him, Dregs?
Yeah, I don't know that, but whatever his issue is, it was explained to me that it just keeps flaring up. So it's definitely something that I've got on my radar. But here's a guy that has worked pretty hard to get back and is very effective when he's healthy, but he can't stay healthy. So we'll keep an eye on that. But that's part of why this whole Toronto trade scenario, whatever it is a challenging one. It's not just about the pieces that have to go out. If you're not moving roster players, then you're not making room. Braden Shen 6.5 moving forward, he isn't a walk in a park. You got to make room for that, not just this year, but the remainder of his contract. So if bodies are coming in, guys have to go. It's that simple.
Yep. Yeah, and that's, we're waiting to see if guys go on waivers or whatever, and other teams are doing that consistently, and you still have a couple of days to figure that out. But it's going to be interesting to see where else this goes, man.
Well, we did have a Jerry's that we at least have a 7 out of 10 trade
that happened today.
Before today at 4:00, and you That was the same.
I think so. Yanni, Gourde, and Oliver Bjorkstrand. I mean, they gave up 2 firsts and a second, and there's some protection on the first-round picks. But, that's a pretty hefty price. But to your point, Dregs, the GM down there, when he wants somebody, he goes out and gets them.
Yeah. And that's where it's not pressure on the general manager. It's pressure on the opportunity. And, that we've been singing this song for a while now around the Toronto Maple Leafs, right? Like if you're not embracing, and management is, they're 100% willing to go all in to try and help this team contend for a Stanley Cup, but the pieces have to be available, and you've got to find a way to make it fit.
All right.
I'm gonna share some information that might make your head blow right off his body here.
Yeah.
He's outside that door.
Who is?
Dreger. He's here.
Dregs is here? You're in the building?
Yeah.
What is happening around here?
Hey, the first time the phone went haywire, I was maybe 50 feet from where you guys are sitting. Yeah.
Doogie.
This guy behind the glass is hiding now.
How do we get you in here? It's too late now. But
hold on. I warned him, though. Yeah. I said to Josh, I'm like, bud, the last time the phone crapped out, I said, you're gonna hear about this.
Yeah. This is amateur hour 101.
Like we're bugging him that he's in his basement.
I thought you were at home. Exactly. I just figured you were at home.
From us.
Guys, right around the corner.
Doogie better put on a sparring cap and some boxing gloves.
Exactly.
There'll be a conversation in the break. Doogie and I.
Oleg Blokin, is that the guy's name? A man conversation?
Yeah, the old Brazilian. What was he? He was Ukrainian.
Yeah, Ukrainian.
Ukrainian soccer coach.
You want to have a man conversation?
You want to go outside for a man conversation? Yeah, Doogie and I will be having a man conversation about that. Well, what do we got? I guess we got Insider Trading. You're basically updating that every hour between now and 3 p.m. on Friday, or what?
Yeah,
I mean, you kind of have to, right?
Well, tonight especially. I mean, geez, we're on the air till 2:00 in the morning with the Leafs regional game in Vegas.
Right.
So you'll get the extended version of Insider Trading and the pregame, and I'm sure they'll dust me off and my gray hair in the second intermission as well.
There you go. Beautiful. All right. Well, I guess I'll see you in 30 seconds. I'll come out and say hi.
Keep an eye on Pete Rose on the panel tonight.
Take care of O tonight. O is calling his shot. He's going to fall asleep on the panel tonight.
I got nothing tonight, man. I'll have nothing.
You better bring it. You better
prepared.
bring it. Be fresh.
Be ready. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Dregs.
Okay, guys. Thank you.
Darren Dreger, a TSN Hockey Insider from 20 feet from here, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline.
20 feet from here, not live.
Not live, and his phone keeps dropping.
We've dropped him 3 times.
The guy could have been in here.
I don't know.
What would have made Hayes? What would have made Hayes' head pop off is if Dregs had made contact with Hayes through that glass through Al's brother's old office and been like, "Can't hear you. It's not
on
working." If
Duthie
he gave you that one,
back there though. Duthie was standing back there, and then I look at my phone, and Dregs is like, "I'm in the hallway." I'm like, "What?"
This is so amateur that we wouldn't do that. This has happened before with guys that. Yeah. They were on the other side, or they're walking over there.
Studio 6.
Yeah. Like I remember, I think Ray had one of those, and Ray's phone was going out. I'm like, "Where are you?" I thought he was in Vancouver.
Yeah,
he's like, "I'm walking over." Yeah, I'm walking over to the studio. Like, well, why didn't you come in?
Yeah.
I didn't feel like it. No, he said something about his driver. He's like, "Wow, the driver this," and I was like, he just didn't want to go.
Just
in there.
Didn't want to do it, or at the time, like the grappler didn't ask him or something.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I've had a tough day. You see, Scotty Scheffler just absolutely put 10 handicaps in a body bag today.
Yeah. He came out and he goes, "My buddy's not that good at golf. He's a 10 handicap."
Do you know how crushing that is to hear that? We got to play it. Yeah. I love these kind of stories because it's so exclusively golf that the best player in the world can go and play with a chop at his home course and lose because of strokes and because of the handicap system. Here's Scotty Scheffler earlier today.
You know, I still love cutting it up with my buddies on the weekends and playing money games and gambling. And, I played last weekend, and one of my buddies who is not a very good golfer, he's like a 10 handicap, he beat me in our side bet for the day. And, I was talking with Phil, and that's kind of one of the great things about golf is, I can go out with a guy who's going to shoot 90, and I can give him enough strokes to where we'll have a good competition. And that's what I think is so fun about the game of golf. And so I don't think that my position has ever changed on that. It's always just been really fun.
Did you handle losing very well?
Yeah, I mean, he held a bunker shot on 18 to win, so it was kind of. I got out of the way because I thought he could potentially shank it, and he ended up holding it. So it was kind of one of those, it was pretty fun. I didn't like losing, and I handed him the money, and then I told him, I was like, thanks, man. Now I got to go play golf tournament next week. So appreciate the confidence boost. Just lost to a 10 handicap,
Oh, man. I can't tell you.
Scotty Scheffler is a plus. He'd have to be a +7. That guy would be getting 17 blows.
Yeah, that guy's and it still came down to 18. He had to hit it, and I guarantee it was for par for 5 net 4 or something like that.
So his buddy was literally a chop then.
Well, but here's the thing: like a 10 handicap is a pretty good player. Yeah, like that's like I'm about a 10.
I was just going to say, so that's you playing him.
Yeah,
and you're getting 17 strokes.
Yeah, well, he's the number 1 player in the world. But the point is. He says it in such a disgusted manner. He's like, "Wow, this guy sucks. He's a 10." Like I thought he'd shank it on 18. I'm like, and that guy probably thinks I'm a pretty good player. I'm out here playing with Scotty, and meanwhile, Scotty's watching him, and it's his friend. He's like, "This guy sucks. Like he's awful at golf." And at the same rate, if I put myself in the opposite shoe where I'm playing with a 30, I'm like, this guy sucks.
Yeah.
So like I would be arrogant in a situation like that if I was giving 17 strokes.
I got to be honest, I watched
but it hurts, man.
that Tiger thing the other night. Like that was
TGL. Tiger's not playing golf professionally anytime soon.
I don't think it could be done. They asked him after, and he's like, I don't think about golf anymore.
I don't know if he's going to play, man. I really don't.
I understand the premise. It's like playing in a giant video game, and then you've got the hole there. Like, but it's just like, hey, Team Atlanta versus team. Like it was just
it is weird. And he's asking his kid for chicken fingers or whatever during the round.
I was watching it.
I think he's played a couple rounds and recently where he's like, I cannot take this to a PGA Tour event.
I agree.
I can't do it.
Yeah.
I agree. Because I think he also hears that from Scotty Scheffler, and he's like, these guys are going to look at me and say, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Why are you doing that? And but I love that Scotty's a degenerate like cash games with 10 handicaps on the weekend.
That's a little Phil Mickelson.
I think he referenced Phil. I'm assuming he was talking Mickelson there.
Oh, there's a guy, I'm sure everyone's got a guy at their country club they just are chomping at the bit to get a piece of. Yeah. There's a guy at Weston, I can't wait to absolutely dummy him.
The best. Vanity cap.
Honestly, he sends me screenshots of his sim and his driving yardages.
Yeah, I can't wait. I can picture being on the first tee and asking for numbers. What's your number? And I can't wait for the guy to say, I'm a 5. Oh, okay. Sure. Yeah. I guess I'm getting strokes then. Let's go play. That sounds great. You want to play a birdie game or something? What are we doing here? Yeah. All right. Anyway, bow tie.
Guys,
bow tie tonight.
I recommend watching tonight. Try to stay up, and I'm gonna bail on some top. I can't do it. I can't.
Who's on the panel? It's you, Cheryl, and
Dregs? Duffy. But I can't do this job late at night. So watch out.
You're Marty Seinfeld.
Was it a red bow tie that he was wearing? I'm pretty sure it was.
That rings a bell.
We got to have a picture. We don't have the video of it?
I don't know if we noticed it, but I don't know if other people really picked up on how tired he was.
It was only us because we only pay attention to stupid stuff like that.
It was extra innings. They were at the park, and he was so tired.
At the end of the panel.
Yeah, he was exhausted. He was so tired. Pete Rose. That'll be tonight on the panel. I'm really looking forward to this now. I can't wait to see what comes. Oh, of course, I'll be there too.
Yeah,
it's happening, 100%. All right, have a good one tonight. We'll catch you tomorrow at 4 p.m.
Later.
There he is, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill. Struddy coming up. Jason Strudwick in about a half an hour. Brad Faxon coming up too. Fax will come up in an hour. We can't wait for that. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, Overdrive continues, powered by FanDuel. Bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, Jamie Noodles McLennan. We got Struddy coming up. Some weird mojo out there in Edmonton right now. Weird mojo.
Playing terrible.
Yeah, defensively, Pickard was in last night. It got ugly. They had to put Skinner in. He wasn't much better.
Well, their first 10 minutes, they were out shooting them 7-1, and McDavid was flying. But the one shot they gave up was a breakaway. And then they just out to lunch. It was brain dead plays, brain dead. Mm-hmm. And they haven't played well since the break.
A month or so, yeah. It's been a while. They struggled on the road coming out of the break. They beat Carolina. Then this is their first game back home. And
Yeah,
they got beat up pretty badly last
Ekholm
night.
didn't skate. I think they're not. Nurse is injured. Like, I don't think that they're healthy, but not playing well either. They just look off. Like, I said this. Well, I said this to Struddy today. I was chatting with him, but I talked to Rashog too. There's not one guy on that team that's playing to their capability other than 29. And 29 was red rotten last night.
Well, that's the thing. Like, the Hart Trophy, he's in the driver's seat right now. But if your team has a tough stretch run, they might take you out of it. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those scenarios where I think he deserved to win it right now. I think, McKinnon's in there and Kucherov and Hellebuck. And
there's nobody running away
with it. There's nobody running away with it. And yet that applies to Draisaitl, too. He's had a great year.
Yeah.
But to your point, defensively, he really struggled last night with some really poor plays.
Not interested. It looked like nobody was interested in playing last night, which was weird. Like, they were fine for 10 minutes, and then they just were like, "No, that's not." I have this saying. I was joking. I used to play. There was a guy named Jari Granstrand in 1990. Mm-hmm. He was a Finnish or Swedish guy. I got to look up if he's Finnish or Swedish. Kind of chubby guy, lazy. And Bush Goring was the coach. And he was a healthy scratch, and then the next day, we had an optional skate. And he took the optional, but he was a healthy scratch.
That's great.
And Butch came in and was like, "Yari, you're gonna skate?" And he was like, "Not today, Butch." So we always have this saying, it's like, "You gonna play today?" "Not today, Butch." Last night, there was a bunch of "not today, Butches." Like,
not in the mood to play last night.
Not in the mood to play last night. So they got to get their act together.
Yeah, they do. I mean, they're, you got Vegas who you're kind of chasing in that division, and they could still win the division. And the Kings are struggling right now, too. They're not playing well either.
Here's the thing I was thinking about. You were talking about seeding. Do you want to win the Pacific if Colorado's in that first seed? Because Winnipeg's going to play.
It feels like it's going to be Minnesota, possibly, and I would want Minnesota, personally.
Yeah, instead of L.A.?
Yes, I think so. I mean, L.A. to me at home, they've been pretty good.
And now, listen, I'm not suggesting they're doing this on purpose. They're playing awful. Mm. But if we were looking at it, because we were talking about the Leafs winning the Atlantic and what would be a favorable matchup, what would be if Edmonton's pathway? I think Colorado's going to scare the hell out of them.
I would rather play L.A. than Colorado.
Correct.
I would agree. And they have owned L.A. in the past. Edmonton has owned them in the playoffs.
But that's the thing. Maybe until they don't. Like, that's you got to play to the best of your capability. But if you look at the pathway for a lot of these teams that we're talking about, careful what you wish for.
Yep.
We joked about it last year because, or was it 2 years ago?
2 years ago. We want Florida. We want Florida. Okay.
Didn't work out. Careful what you wish for. You got to play better. Period.
Yep.
But the pathway, that Central Division, that might look like Dallas and Colorado. Like that's.
I think that's very likely. I mean, Colorado's 2 points back at Minnesota, and Minnesota they've dealt with injuries and they've been kind of plugging along.
5-5 in the last 10.
Yeah, I think it ends up Dallas, Colorado in the first round, and then if you're playing Minnesota, I would prefer to play them over playing LA. But that could be the benefit of it. In the end, it absolutely could be. But we'll see where Struddy stands on that. And I've got a couple of things, like kind of a pick your poison type scenario. You choose which side you would fall on the ledger on these. Okay, and I got a couple that we'll answer, and then I want to get them to Struddy as well.
Sure.
Who's having a worse season based on their standards?
Like Bar.
Based on what you expect out of them. Connor McDavid or Auston Matthews?
Do we have the stats side by side? Can Joe put them up or something? Like, what is Austin?
I'm kind of jamming Joe up because
but Austin's got 20 goals? 21?
Yeah, he's on pace for 33 on the season, which would obviously be a career low. So Austin has 22 goals, 52 points in 46 games played.
And what does McDavid have?
McDavid's up to, I believe, 77 points, and he's missed more games. Or he hasn't missed as many games, but he's missed some with the suspension and the injuries.
Yeah.
So McDavid's got 77 points.
Well, the only reason I would say it's Austin, but Austin's been hurt.
Mm-hmm. Although he claims he's all right now, and everything's all good.
Saying,
but
like Auston Matthews scored 69 last year, and he's on pace for 34.
Yeah.
McDavid points-wise is he's off pace.
Yeah, like Pasternak's caught him. Mitch is a point behind. Like when you think, like the automatic.
It's a great, actually.
The two automatics
they're bang
were
on.
McDavid wins the Art Ross and Matthews wins the Rocket. Like, that's just been kind of automatic. It was last year. It's been in years past. Where you're like, if those guys are healthy and they're playing the way they're playing, McDavid may not hit 100 points, which is kind of staggering. That's why I'd lean McDavid because his bar is even higher than Matthews, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, you're right. And it's probably McDavid. So he's got 72 points in what, 20?
He's got 77 points. Well, Connor McDavid.
But he'll get 20. You don't think he'll get 23 points?
I think he will. But up until recent, like a week ago, he was on pace for 97 points. Like, I would guess he ends up with 103, 104 points. And, he snuck in a couple of points last night. But
healthy or involved. I mean,
they don't look right, either of them. Like, they really don't.
The crazy thing was McDavid looked like McDavid last night. The rest of his team was out to lunch. Mm-hmm. But he hasn't looked like McDavid.
He's admitted that himself.
But here's the thing, and we should actually do, just for fun, and this is a bigger exercise, who in that Four Nations has come back and been world beaters? I mean, Binnington won his first game out. Mm-hmm. Hagel scored. Gensel scored. But top-tier players.
Yeah.
They all look uninterested and tired.
It's a good question. Yeah, well, it's so deflating to go back to the regular season.
And we even talked about it as fans, going, it's like McDavid won on a Thursday night. He's playing at 1 o'clock on a Saturday.
Yeah, and then on the Sunday playing at 1 o'clock or 3 o'clock.
Played 3 games in 4 nights.
3 different cities in the East.
Coming out of that, in hindsight, you probably should have shut him down and said,
take the weekend off.
Take the weekend off. Go and catch up with your family. Do whatever. Sleep off a hangover. I hope he had one.
Me too. If you win like that on the Thursday night.
In the end, this is really the February, March doldrums for a lot of these top tier players. Like, that are now they got to snap out of it. Maybe after the trade deadline, where it's like, okay, this is our team. This is the stretch. Get going here. But these top players. And Marner's gotten some points. He had a great week
Marner's Marner's looked okay. Yeah, he's looked pretty good. But you're right. I mean, you'd have to go down the list of guys on both sides. JT Miller, I guess Miller's looked pretty good coming out.
But the injuries that have cost
Hughes has been hurt. Kachuk's only played a game. Brady, Matthew hasn't played.
And McAvoy. You go down the list, they're like, guys, these guys paid a price. And now they come back to the club team, and it's like, okay, this big letdown, that might seep through the team as well. But it's a great... I think that's a coin toss because of the expectation for both of them.
Both of them are expected to be better than they have been.
Yeah, and rightfully so. They've set the bar, not us.
Exactly. McDavid's the clear-cut best player in the world, and Matthews is a top 5 and the best goal scorer. And that's the thing. Like, if Auston ends up with 33 goals, yes, he's been banged up, he's missed some time, but that is a staggering stat for him. That for him, like, this guy as a rookie hit 40 or 41, and he's never looked back.
There's probably a Jerry's there for you. That could he get to could he get to 40?
Of course he could. Like, he could score 25 goals in the last 20 games, and it wouldn't, like, based on his standard. Last year he may have done that over a 20-game span, but it doesn't feel like that's going to happen with him. All right, more faith in the playoffs: Stuart Skinner or Anthony Stolarz? Who do you think you'll have more faith in come playoff time?
The only thing I would say Skinner, because I've seen it. With Stolarz, he's played one relief performance.
One playoff performance, and it was, I believe, in relief.
It was they lost 8-2 to Edmonton or whatever. That was game whatever that was.
Yeah.
4. But I mean, there's not a lot of faith right now.
That's why I'd say Stolarz, just even though I don't know what it's going to look like come playoff time. Like, Skinner is in a bad place right now.
Yeah, he's not playing well, but I mean, we've at least seen him in a Game 7. We've at least seen him play well in a playoff game. I have no idea what Stolarz can bring. I hope, I think, I know, and I like the player, and I think, but it's kind of like the Hellebuck comparison. Like, you know what you know because you've seen it. So I'm still going with Skinner, because he's lumped into guys that have to play a lot better on that team in Edmonton.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think, like, Skinner, Pickard, the goalies, you know the market well. I mean, it's loud out there right now. They're not happy with the way things are going. You're 20 games out. They're not playing well. They're not defending well.
No, they're not defending
Nurse has been hurt. Ekholm hasn't been playing great, and he's been banged up. And, Klingberg, they're playing him, but I don't know. What do you expect out of John Klingberg?
I honest to God, I said this to a buddy yesterday. The Edmonton Oilers were on this heater, and they put in Klingberg the night against Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes offside, cost them a point.
That's right. That's right.
It was a regulate. That was going
to tie the game.
Cost them a point that night. And then ever since, they've kind of, the air is kind of like.
Doesn't look right. The Klingberg curse.
And that's a really lazy analogy from me to go,
I don't
one
think
player
so.
has sucked the air out of it. But it's just like, there's nights where he looks like a contest winner, which he's got to play a lot better. The hands are there, the feet aren't. And that's the thing. I understand what Edmonton's doing, playing him and giving him an opportunity to get up to speed, but at what cost? And he hasn't been he's not the reason why they're losing these games, but he hasn't dug them out either. He's not helping.
No, exactly. Okay, I got a few more we'll sprinkle in here with Strutty.
Yeah,
I got some good ones here. Actually,
these ones.
I got some good ones.
Do you have anything non-Edmonton,
Yeah, I do. I got one.
Throw one at me.
Well, think about this, and we'll come back and we can answer it. Who would you take right now with their contract in mind? Elias Pettersson or Jonathan Huberdeau?
Ooh.
Okay, think about that. And I got a couple of other ones.
That one is sneaky.
It's a sneaky one because, again, Huberdeau's actually knocked off a couple of years on that deal.
I know who.
Okay, you'll answer that. I'll answer it. We'll get to it. Strutty coming up. Brad Faxon with the Arnie Palmer starting up in the Players next week. What does he see in Tiger Woods' future? Is Tiger going to play at all this year? We'll catch up with Faxon 45. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, Jason Strudwick in 15. Brad Faxon coming up. Our best bet still to come. Elias Pettersson or Jonathan Huberdeau. With their current contracts, who are you taking?
Okay, so I told you Huberdeau in the break, but I've rethought it. I think it's Pettersson.
You're going Pettersson.
Just based on the upside and the age of the player.
Yeah.
I still think, change is necessary potentially for Pettersson. But if he regains his form, I think the ceiling's bigger.
I agree. I think it's worth that because, unfortunately for Huberdeau, it's a couple years now. I think this is what he's going to be, a kind of 25-goal scorer, 50-point guy.
Right.
Good player. And I know Pettersson has completely fallen off a cliff, but you have to believe or hope he gets back to it. Now, the case for Huberdeau is less term, less money.
Right.
And maybe you can guarantee 25 goals and 50 points. With Pettersson, who the hell knows what's going on?
That's true. But it's just a mess out there.
Yeah. Okay, what do you got for
I was thinking about this, and this will be a poll for us to put out there. So given that Yanni Gourde has gone back to Tampa, because they won with him, the familiarity. Mm-hmm. But they also brought back Ryan McDonough.
Yes.
Right? So Brisebois is a guy who has not been shy to move people out, but then, bring some guys back that he feels comfortable with. If you're the Toronto Maple Leafs at this deadline, is there anybody that you would covet that's been a part of this Leaf group in the last 5-6 years that you go, want that guy back?
Ooh.
I've got two.
Okay.
One is Ryan O'Reilly.
I was just going to say, it feels like O'Reilly and Schenn, and the reason you say that is because they were there when they won a series.
The other one was Nazem Kadri.
Yes, Kadri would be at the top of my list if you could put Naz in. Now it's more complicated because of the term and the money.
Yes,
but if you had him as your third line center, and you put a line together of Nazem Kadri and Yarncroke and Bobby McMahon or something, that to me is a really quality third line with some jam, and they can move and they can perform. So I would have Naz at the top. I'd have O'Reilly at number 2,
and Luke Schenn.
I don't know. Schenn. I love the story of Luke Schenn. I love the way he played, but that was 2 years ago. He's not a young guy. 2 more years.
Yeah, I mean, Schenn wouldn't be, but. It is interesting.
But who else have they had on defense that sticks out? That's I'm racking my brain here.
Who's their right Bogosian, big bearded guy?
That's it. I don't think
that Russian.
He's down in Dallas.
Lyubushkin.
Ilya Lyubushkin's in Dallas.
But I'm just saying, wish list, not you.
Well, Lyubushkin they had twice, right? They brought him in twice.
It's just heavier.
Yeah.
Type of that's what I'm thinking. Who would you bring back into the mix that you like? that guy left because of money or they couldn't afford him or whatever.
Yeah, Naz, I've said this before. I've always loved Nazem Kadri. And, it's the reason he went was partially because of the suspensions, which he was maybe, rightfully so at the time to pay a price, and because Tavares had signed.
Right.
Like that was a big part of it, is that they were committed to Auston and John, and they looked at Naz and said he's not a third-line center. He doesn't really fit.
Right. That's fair.
And
he was acting up in the playoffs, too.
Yeah, and that was I think it was a combination of all of it. And they swung for the fences, and they brought in Tyson Barrie, and it didn't work.
But Mason Marshman wasn't fall in there because he never played for that guy.
Never really fit here. Never. Same thing with like Carter Verhaeghe was technically in the Leaf lineup, and
But I'm sure there's somebody we're missing.
I know. We'll ask people to send it in.
Yeah.
We'll ask them to send it in.
It's not a bad poll question.
I like that poll question. Throw it out there, or just ask people to submit. If you could go back over the last 5 years, let's say, and just pluck someone and plug them right back in, who are you taking?
Yeah.
Tampa made a pretty substantial deal today, and their GM is speaking on it. He had a great quote in terms of how he looks at team building and picks in the future. We'll get to that and more coming up in the next hour. Not Ryan Rishaga, I was going to say Shager's coming on, but Struddy's coming on.
Big Strud.
Big Strud will join us. And Brad Faxon coming up too. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.